All right, welcome to our very first campaign live stream. I'm here with my pal, Melissa Couture, who is a candidate for District 15 here in South Carolina, and also the second vice chair of the South Carolina Libertarian Party. I am Kasie Whitener. I'm running for U.S. Senate as a Libertarian here in South Carolina, currently the only candidate actually on the ballot, thanks to our Libertarian Convention that happened on April 11th. And so Melissa and I are just going to chat a little bit tonight. I was going to have you in the backstage, Melissa, while I did some of this campaign business stuff, but I think I'll just keep you here. How's that?
Sounds good.
Let you hang out. All right. So the first thing I want to do, because this is the first of our live streams, and the live streams are called Not My Circus. And the reason they're called Not My Circus is that we're running these live streams leading up to the primaries. And of course, I don't have a primary because I'm a libertarian. And so what's happening in the primaries right now is like a circus. Like there are a ton of just silliness things happening every single day. It's a constant news cycle of just like monkeys misbehaving. And so what I wanted to do with this series from now until about mid-June, maybe right after the primaries, is really focus on this idea that the primaries are a circus, but it's not my circus, and also not my monkeys. So that takes us to the first segment, which is our Monkey of the Week segment. And I was sharing just a little bit with Melissa when we were off the air. I had 2 nominations for Monkey of the Week this week, as far as the primaries are concerned. And the first disclaimer I want to put out there is I am not in any way trashing other individuals as specific people. That's not what this is about. The Monkey of the Week is about how the primaries force our candidates to the extremes and force them to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do, hopefully, just to try to appeal to these likely voters, a lot of whom are extreme in one direction or the other. So the first Monkey of the Week nominee, Melissa, you actually brought it to my attention. It was a Facebook post by Mark Lynch, who was running in the Republican primary for the U.S. Senate seat against Lindsey Graham. And I think there might be 1 or 2 other challengers. But in that space, Mark Lynch had posted on Facebook something to the effect that same-sex couples, when they adopt children, are guilty of child trafficking.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that about right? Am I like remembering that accurately?
Yes. Yeah, it was. I was speechless when I read it because it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's appalling. It's for a number of reasons. One is that when we think of same-sex couples and married couples and the idea that they are inherently sexual is bizarre to me. Like, it's not like when we look at a mom and dad who are married, we immediately assume anything about their sexuality or their sex life. So I don't understand why we're so preoccupied with same-sex couples in that particular way. But then to accuse loving parents of instead being child predators simply because they're married to somebody of the same sex is also, to me, appalling. And so I was just, we'll just go with the word appalled. I was appalled. And when you shared that with us, I was like, wow.
The same government approved process that everyone who adopts a child goes through. So yeah, I don't know how this trafficking is happening. I don't understand.
Yeah, because adoption is a legal process, right? And there are legal investigations. And exactly, yeah. And one of the biggest arguments against abortion, which we know that Mark Lynch is very anti-abortion, is that we need to make it easier for families to become whole. We needed to make it easier for loving parents to have children and to care for those children. So I just really didn't understand the position of that accusation. And it read to me like an accusation. So anyway, Monkey of the Week, that's nominee number 1. And then the second Monkey of the Week is, bless her heart, our Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, who had been invited to speak at South Carolina State University's commencement. And then after student protests broke out, accusing her of being an anti-DEI person, which she is, she has come out and said that she's opposed to diversity, equity, and inclusivity initiatives. And that is being read as being racist or being anti-Black. I know Pamela Evette. I don't in any way think that she's anti-Black or that she's racist in any way. But instead of this being like, hey, we don't want you here, and her being like, okay, cool, I'm out. She went on this sort of circuit of explaining herself, that instead she would come and speak as a lieutenant governor, not necessarily as a candidate. And so this, again, with this primaries thing and it being an election year, makes things complicated because she is an incumbent. She is a lieutenant governor. She is a business owner. She's, she's done really good things for our state, for entrepreneurs in our state. And she has a lot to offer as far as guidance to young people as they go out into the job market. So she is a good, you would think, a good selection for a commencement speaker. And all the commencement speeches she's done before were not politically motivated in any way. And yet it is a campaign season, and this is a campaign topic. And so there's maybe reason to be skeptical that she would not make it a campaign conversation. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Because I think, honestly, she was probably notified first, right? Like, hey, by the way, we don't think you should come. And if it had been me, I'd have been like, okay. Like, I just would have been like, okay.
It's like a conflict of interest. Because you're not just the lieutenant governor, you're also
also campaigning.
Yeah, that can't be separated.
So it does feel a little bit like in an election year, you are a candidate almost first, right? And then you're the lieutenant governor second. And especially as we are so close to primaries, I would think that seems to be recognizable. You're a candidate first. And I think the response really should have just been like, all right, deuces, next time, maybe next time. Right. But instead it got blown into this whole thing. Then she had to defend her positions on DEI. Like, all that conversation didn't necessarily have to take place if her campaign team had just quietly been like, okay, that's cool, we're good. You know what I mean? Like, and no comment. We respect the wishes of the students at South Carolina State University. No comment. You know what I mean? Like, I'd have been,
no one would have talked about it ever again. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been like a nothing story if they had just let it go. And so, so those are my two nominations for Monkeys of the Week. And once again, Monkeys of the Week this is not a criticism of these individuals as people. This is meant to be examples of how the primaries turn candidates into monkeys. It makes them dance for approval, and it makes them do things and say things that, gosh, hopefully they wouldn't otherwise do or say. I don't know. What do you think, Melissa? Should we vote for them? Or we should just let them both have it.
Yeah, it's the first episode. We'll have two.
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll just let them both be there. And we'll, in the future, we'll just bring, maybe we'll focus on one example in the future, but
it's hard. It's hard to whittle it down to one.
It is hard. And don't think this is just about the Republicans, because I assure you there's monkeys on the other side too. I'll bring some of those examples to next week's live stream. So yeah, that's a quick update. We're going to do these every week. Next week's live stream will be in the same location as you're finding this one here. I'll put the website address up there for you. For those of you who are just finding me on Facebook and YouTube for the first time, you can get out to CaseySouthCarolina.com or find me on the socials at Kasie South Carolina, and be part of that. That would be great. Okay. So now, Melissa, tell us about your role with the South Carolina Libertarian Party as second vice chair. You're also the chair of the campaigns committee. And as such, you have been building the infrastructure to support our candidates. And this year we're running 11 candidates in the midterm election. So kudos to you. Congratulations to you for building that infrastructure. Tell us a little bit about what goes into that and kind of what people can expect from the Libertarians this year.
We have 11 candidates, which is awesome. We've got Senate. We have 3 of the U.S. House districts have Libertarian candidates. We have Michael Sullins is running for Commissioner of Agriculture. I'm sorry, I told that child not to do that. I love it. I have too many children. Sorry, y'all. And then we have 6 South Carolina House candidates. And we're very excited. We need volunteers and money. Always volunteers and money.
Always, yeah. I was listening to that, that classic rock song, Send Lawyers, Guns, and Money, the other day. And I was like, why does that feel like a campaign song? Why does that feel like campaign season is about lawyers, guns, and money?
I like it. And,
that's awesome. Yeah. So tell us about the infrastructure. So one of the things that I'm looking at for our campaign is some AI assisted tools and some other things that we can use that can kind of create some exponential reach, because of course we don't have the huge budgets to pay a lot of operatives to be building things on social media and then, sharing those things out and amplifying those. Welcome to Joe Hanush, who's in here tonight, which is awesome. Sarah, Alexa, you guys that are watching and then are going to go out and share this out on social media. We really appreciate that. But talk a little bit about some of the innovative things that we're using to try to get in front of people and share our message.
Oh, that's an IT question. Ha! No, the thing, my most excited thing, usually it takes a long time. Everybody needs a website. Everybody needs branding, headshots, whatnot. Kasie Crow, our IT director, has been working on plug and play templates. So the candidates fill it out, upload a picture, and boom, they've got a website, which is really nice because we need to start campaigning as early as possible because we nominated all of our candidates. We don't have primaries, and we sent out a press release, and one place published it. Yeah. Meanwhile, a Republican or a Democrat, trips down a stair and there's 16 news stories about it. So trying to get any sort of media coverage is difficult. So yeah, going live, going out to events, just talking to people as much as possible.
Yeah, one of the best ways for people to get involved and participate in the candidates themselves or in the campaigns themselves is to go to sclp.org and find that list of candidates. It's on the website. You can see all the different candidates there. Our websites are there. And then if there's one in your district or there's one that's nearby you, if you want to get directly involved in somebody that's close by, I'm of course a statewide candidate, so I need volunteers from all over the state. If they want to go to CaseySouthCarolina.com and fill out our volunteer form, that's a great way to get involved and to let people know that you're willing to help out. That's one of the ways to plug in.
Yes, you can volunteer through that link also, and we will figure out where best to put you.
As far as that earned media coverage is concerned, right? So we know the traditional media is typically following around our opponents in the major parties. They're also purchasing media, right? Because they do have much bigger budgets than we do. So and because it's primaries, so they're all advertising. We're not going to be on the ballot until November. So for us, the advertising dollars aren't well spent right now. You know what I mean? So we're not necessarily out there placing ads with the Post and Courier or with the Free Times or with, whatever other major conglomerate owns all of the press in South Carolina. It's really Post and Courier owns everything, right? But we're not doing ad buys because we're not in the primaries. And so because we're not doing ad buys, they're not really paying a lot of attention to us. One of the things I did get though from there's a York County paper, it's like the York County Citizen or something like that. And when I told them, hey, I'm not in the primary, but I do, I could write letters to the editor or op-eds, they said they would be willing to take a look at op-eds. So one of the things that our candidates can be doing to get some publicity through those traditional media outlets, specifically in the smaller papers, is to be writing op-eds related to current issues and things that are currently happening. And op-eds don't have to be long. They can be, 250 to 300 words, and the newspaper can publish those in their local paper or also in their online website. So I think there's opportunity there for our people. They just have to create the content and then get that content pushed out.
Yep. And every survey, every group that sends you a survey, you fill that out.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, actually. Let's talk about that. So my next week, I'm going to be on the same live stream. I'm going to be interviewing the gal that runs Homeless No More. And part of the reason I'm talking to her is about affordability and talking about housing. And it's coming on the heels of me having gotten a particular response from the Realtors Association, because I did fill out their survey and they did not invite me for an interview. And I thought that must be a miss. And so I reached out and said, can I please have an interview? And they gave me an interview. And anyway, there's a blog post going up next week that explains exactly how that happened. But essentially, the realtors don't believe that I represent realtor values or realtor interests. And that's mostly because I don't agree with the government subsidizing lenders so that more people can buy houses. And I hate that for our realtor friends, because I do want them to sell more houses. I just don't want the government to pay for those houses, which is what we do with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, right? And so anyway, so I wrote about that. And you said the surveys, when the surveys come to you as a candidate, you fill them out, right? Except that sometimes those surveys are very politically motivated in a particular political way. And it may be completely opposite of what you think or what you believe. So would you recommend filling it out anyway, if you know you're not aligned with that organization?
Yes. Yeah, I just filled one out for, I believe, the teachers union.
Okay.
And the way the questions are worded, it's very, very obvious what their stance is. And most of my answers were, I understand your stance, but like we see the same problems. I have very different solutions. So
Yeah. It's
but
interesting, I think, because in my interview with the realtors, and I don't want to talk too much about it this week, so I want to talk a lot about it next week. But in my interview with them, I think I told them things they didn't expect to hear from a candidate. Like usually you think the candidate's going to come in and pander and tell them exactly what they want to hear just for the purpose of getting their endorsement, right? And I just told them, I said, I think new home buyers need a budget and they need a down payment. And so the best thing we can do for them is to reduce inflation by paying off our national debt so that they can save money for a down payment, right? Like that's the legislation I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Exactly, is reducing the debt so that they can save their money, right? Like so anyway, all that to say, the surveys, they're going to come to all the candidates. They're going to get the surveys. I got one's Moms Demand Action, which is an organization that's very much about gun rights or the lack thereof, gun restrictions, firearms restrictions, I should say. So that was an interesting one for me to fill out as well. So it'll be interesting to think about like how those things happen. But here's the thing, because then now the realtors are going to send my name to 30,000 people.
Yeah.
And they're going to say to those 30,000 people, hey, she's not for us. and the question is whether or not any of those 30,000 people will be like, but let me go check her out and see what she has to say. So it may very well be that just being included in their results, even if it's not necessarily them endorsing you, just being included in their results gives you some of that exposure that you might be looking for.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to put that blog up and hopefully when the realtors send it out to 30,000 people, those realtors will come to my website and they'll see my blog and they'll go, oh, she makes sense about this, but who knows? We'll see. All right. So when we think about, I don't want to be here longer than 30 minutes. So I just wanted to kind of talk through some of this infrastructure piece with the SCLP. I also want to, every week, I want to give a quick shout out to somebody on my team who is doing really great work. This week, that shout out's going to my friend Anna, who is sending email queries to podcasts to try to get me booked on these podcasts. And we're having some pretty good success. I'm getting like probably 1 out of every 5 that is going like, yeah, we could do that. One of them actually was with Helinski's Hope. I don't know if you're familiar with Helinski's Hope, but they are an organization here in Columbia that supports the mental health of student athletes at the collegiate level. They're run by Ryan Helinski, whose older brother died by suicide, and he was a college athlete. And so, but anyway, all that to say, hopefully I'm going to have Ryan on one of these live streams talk about what they're doing. But the point is that through these queries that Anna's been sending out, I've been getting responses from people in the community who are doing really cool stuff. And they're saying like, yeah, absolutely, we want to have you on our podcast. And then I'm like, okay, then I want you to come on my live stream and share what you're doing too. So let's talk a little bit about how we can do really cool things in our state without relying on the government to solve all of our problems for us, which, as we know, is just like a big fail anyway. So the shout out for this week for my team goes to Anna, and a big thank you to Anna for sending out those podcast queries. Cause like I said, I'm starting to see some really good results from them. That makes me happy.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So Joe has a question. He says, question for candidates: should parents have choice in what school their students go to? I don't know how this is relevant to what else we've been talking to, but we can talk about it if you want. Should parents have choice in what school their students go to? As a District 15 candidate, Melissa, do you think that parents should have a choice in South Carolina?
My children do not go to the school they're zoned for. I've got 1 in a charter school and 2 in a magnet school.
But you're utilizing the government-provided school system. You're just using the school choice program inside that government.
I'm using
so
the
not
Charleston
necessarily
County school choice. Yes.
So not necessarily in the moving in that private school space. Yeah. I'm in the same vibe. Holly is zoned for the school that she goes to, but we are definitely believe that she was homeschooled for a couple of years during COVID. So we definitely believe that parents ought to have a choice as far as how their kids are going to be educated. So there's that. All right. And last but not least, the call to action for this week's podcast. So I started looking through, I don't know what's going on with the website, but there's a website that I had a blog out there called New Rules for Campaigning, and it's all about the corruption that's happening right now. And so I want to kind of touch on this just really quickly. In South Carolina, they have already started this redistricting conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead. I love that. Roll your eyes on camera, Melissa. Please do.
Too loud.
So what we learned when we were registering our candidates for the federal seats, districts 1 through 7, was that you don't actually have to live in your district to represent your district. So they can, in fact, redistrict these 7 districts, and it won't affect our candidates, but it will affect the voters and who's going to vote for them. And I saw 2 takes on this today, which I thought were both really interesting. The first take was from somebody in our party who was like, this is just more rigging the game. Like, this is just more trying to add more to their power, to their supermajority and this kind of thing, right? And I lean in that direction where I think like we're all in like George Orwell's 1984 right now, where like the party is the omnipotent, powerful being that only cares about power. They don't care about people. They only care about power. Like, that's really what we're seeing. But the other take I saw on Facebook was from Joe Cunningham. I don't know if you remember him, but he was he ran for governor as a Democrat, and then in the last election cycle, he was in the no labels party. He was part of the no labels effort. In any case, he said if the Republicans want to dilute the African American vote by putting them into every district, right, and then make every district a potential swing district, then why wouldn't we let them do that? As opposed to concentrating that African American vote into that one district, which is James Clyburn's district, right? And so he was like, and which this is one of the things that the Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey said was, if we're not careful, we could end up with a lot of swing districts instead of, in any case. Yeah, and this is about the Supreme Court ruling in Louisiana over the Louisiana redistricting that was saying that you can't create a district based solely on the race of the voters who live in that space, which in theory I agree with, right? Like, it's not right to go out and draw district lines around whether or not you're, African American or Caucasian or whatever. Like, that's not the right way to draw district lines anyway. So like, in theory, I agree with that, but it does mean that some of these districts that have created a guarantee, I put this in air quotes, but like a guaranteed African-American representation, are now going to see those voters diluted into other districts, which may mean that an African-American does not get elected in those spaces. But that doesn't have to mean that. It could, in fact, mean that all of those districts now become a lot more competitive, because now you have to be talking to a broader range of issues.
Yep.
See what I mean? So I'm almost kind of in the Joe Cunningham camp all of a sudden on this, where I'm like, you know what? If the Republicans want to do that, maybe they should. And like, maybe then the Democrats just need to work that much harder, or maybe that opens up the door for a libertarian candidate. Like, we have candidates in 3 of those 7 districts. So in those 3 races, maybe that creates for our 3 candidates the opportunity to speak to, everybody, and then to also force their opponents to broaden their message and not just focus on, this primary monkeyhood that's been happening for the last few weeks. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. At the end of the day,
reason they're doing it is absolutely, definitely just to consolidate power. That is the reasoning behind it. Whether that's the effect,
it is 100% about that.
We'll see.
Yeah. It is 100% about that. And that was it. So the message I'm sending out on my email tomorrow, that was kind of the message I put in there, which is basically like, look, this is the exact quote from George Orwell. The party seeks power entirely for its own sake. We are not interested in the good of others. We are interested solely in power, pure power. And that's a direct quote from George Orwell's 1984. And if people think that this idea of redistricting is not a huge threat, it actually is a pretty big threat, because it's basically saying the party is what matters. The people don't matter. It's the party that matters. But we've known that for a while, that the parties are running that machine. That's the game they're playing.
Yep.
All right, let's see. I'm looking through some of our comments. I don't see any specific questions for us. So good. So the last thing I'm going to say, like I said, I was looking for the blog that I wrote related to the new rules for campaigning. And what I wanted to do is share just a couple of ideas from this, because for whatever reason, my website's not showing all of the blogs that are up there. So I couldn't get to this one. So I'll make sure I post it on my Facebook page. But basically, the beginning of it starts out with everybody knows that the parties cheat, and everybody's annoyed and disgusted by the cheating on both sides. And some of that crowd that is the like, you have to play the game, is starting to move into the camp that we have been in for a long time, which is like the it doesn't have to be this way camp. And so I went into this blog kind of talking about the culture of political cheating. And then, let's make sure that when we are choosing our candidates, we're not choosing our candidates because it's the easy shortcut thing to do, name recognition or party recognition, but we're choosing them because we've done our homework, we've read up on them, and we believe that they truly are going to be the right pick for us and they're going to do the right thing. So yeah, that blog's out there, and I'll throw it out into the comments here so you guys can see it. Because like I said, I don't know why, but I can't find it on my website right now. But here, we'll throw that out there.
And with the parties, even if they're not cheating, they are rigging the game. They just passed a bill to require every candidate to pay the filing fees to pay for the primaries.
Yep.
Even us. But
who doesn't have primaries?
Participate in the primaries.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Yeah. That's just another way to keep competition off the ballot.
Exactly. And what it means, and this is what I was writing about too, this is also going to be in the email that goes out tomorrow. What that means is if I were going to run under this rule, I would have had to pay $10,000, $10,440 just to be in the race, just to be on the ballot.
And we had House members. And we had 2 candidates, both of you. Yeah. Would have had to pay the $10,000, even though we held our own private nominating convention that cost the state a whopping $0. I think they actually made money because the place we rented was through the town of
Richland County,
Columbia, or the county of Richland. So they made money on our convention.
But we bear the cost for our own convention. And then on top of that, we're expected to pay for their primaries. So that's not going to stand. Like, we're going to have to do something about that. Either they hold a primary for us, or we should refuse to pay those fees. But we'll kick that down the road when we come to it.
That's a next 2 years problem.
That's a 2028 problem. Yeah. But the other thing I was going to say is these South Carolina House voted themselves a raise. So they're apparently going to be receiving $47,500 annual compensation, which means that our House folks for the SC House would have had to pay $950 each to file. So you're talking about like a mortgage payment that somebody would have to pay in order to be able to run for office. And the reason they think this is okay is because they're supported by their parties, and their parties have these political action committees, and they have these special interest groups, and they have all this extra money, right? So they're really well funded. Those people can go up there. They can pay $950. But I don't know how many people can afford to just put aside money until they have $950 to go up there and pay a filing fee just to try to hold these people accountable, because that's the whole reason that you run against somebody else. It's to let them know your seat is not guaranteed. You don't deserve this just because you got elected one time, right? Like, an incumbent should not feel safe. They should always feel like their job is at risk unless they're doing what they're supposed to do for their constituents. That's how it should be. But if they raise those barriers to entry so that there is no competition, then their incumbents just get to feel safe all the time. And then the party just gets to choose, who are we going to fund? Who are we going to put on the ballot? And then, don't even bother, because we're not going to give you your $950. Or, hey, don't even bother, Mark Lynch, because we're not going to give you your $10,000 to get on the ballot, right? Like, they can very well say that they have an incumbent, they like their incumbent, and they're not going to fund anybody else to get on the ballot. This is another way that they rig the game. They raise the barriers to entry, and they are stealing the elections from the people. And that's 100% on the parties. That's 100% on the parties.
And they have everybody convinced. If I hear one more time, third party can't win, you can't vote, it's a wasted vote. It's not.
Nope.
If you vote for hold your nose and vote for them, they have no idea why you voted for them. They think you love them, and you think everything they're doing is wonderful. The only way is to vote for someone, not them.
Yep. Don't stay home.
Yes, don't stay home.
Don't vote for the parties. Go to the election and find an independent, find a third-party candidate, find somebody that will tell these major parties that you do not approve of what they're doing. Let them know that they are at risk. And the more people we can get out there to do that, the more likely we are to actually win.
Libertarian for a race on my ballot, I'll vote. Yep, I'll vote Green,
100%.
Working Party. I will vote anything before I vote Republican or Democrat.
I agree. I'm with you on that. I'll vote them. I'll vote anybody other than the other two. Yeah, you're exactly right on that. All right, we're at 7:30, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for us. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me on my very first Not My Circus.
And hang on, I've got one more thing. One more thing. If you go, filing for partisan races was in March. That is over. But there are local nonpartisan races, and most of the filing windows for those are in August. So if you want to run and are interested in learning more, or you want help, go to sclp.org. There is a run for office form, and it comes right to me. And then you'll be hearing from me, and we'll get y'all questions answered, get you ready to run.
Yeah, 100%. We want to see as many folks as we can that step forward and are willing to pick up the opportunity to do that. I also showed that Better Ballot SC. We want to give them a quick shout out too. They're a good nonprofit organization here in the state that's working for fair ballots and for fair voting. So we want to make sure you guys pay attention to that. Take a look at their website. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. Thank you, Melissa.
Yes, thank you, Kasie.
Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. I appreciate y'all. We will be back next week on It's Not My Circus. For now, that's it. Signing out. Ooh.